All right. Well, thanks everyone. Good to see you. Glad to reconvene and go through some things this week. And we're really excited to have Jason join the team as our senior developer. It's been a wonderful process for me as part of the hiring committee to get to know Jason, and I'm super excited about him joining our group. It's going to be fantastic. So with that, why don't we do a quick round of intros? Jason, excited for you to get to know the web monitoring analyst team as well. We'll be working closely together. So maybe I'll just start. I'm going to start up where I'm at on my screen and work around. Gretchen, you're first.
Hello, I'm Gretchen. I've been working with web monitoring since the beginning of EDGI, and I'm also on steering committee. And I'm actually tomorrow signing a contract to be the web monitoring project lead. So I'm very excited for that as well.
Yay.
And I have to introduce you to my kitty cat Scout, who's also joining the team. Very, very excited.
Assistant lead.
We're big on our furry friends being involved.
And yeah, I'm very excited for Jason coming on board, and Annie, nice to meet you. I was in the woods last week, and so it's nice to meet you now.
Thank you, Gretchen. I should have probably said maybe just who you are, where you are, how you got to be involved with EDGI. Those types of things are what we're looking for. I'm next in my circle. You know me, Jason, Jake Wiley. I have been the analyst coordinator for the past almost 8 months and joined EDGI last June. Live in Brooklyn, work in the financial services industry at Bloomberg. And I'll introduce you to Happy, who's currently munching on a moose ear, but this is him. He likes to disrupt where possible. All right, Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob. I write lots of random code across all the tools that support this, so all the horrifying things that you are learning this week are largely my fault. And let me know of all the broken and terrifying things you find.
Annie?
Hi, I'm Annie. I'm an undergrad CS major, computer science major at University of Maryland. I just joined last week, and I'm also part of a sustainability program, and I'm interested in environmental policy as well.
Dan.
Annie, it's good to see another Baltimore contingent here. I'm Maryland contingent. I'm working in Baltimore right now. I work for Department of Energy run national lab, but do this just as a volunteer. And I first got involved with EDGI by sort of showing up to the event at Penn in January 2017, knowing nothing and no one, but seeing an article in the Washington Post about concerned scientists rallying there, and got sucked into contributing code intermittently. So the good parts of the mess that you're seeing, Jason, are Rob's, and the parts that they were written, look like they were written by a physicist who thinks he can code, are written by me. Hopefully it'll turn out.
Nice. Jason.
So I'm Jason Sherman. I am in the metropolis of Chickasha, Oklahoma. By metropolis, I mean rural village of about 15,000 people. I am currently also a part-time developer for the Wikimedia Foundation. And until recently, I was working on the tech side in higher ed in Oklahoma, which I did for 12 years, basically. Yeah, I really do have a pretty strong passion for open knowledge and the open web, and for truth as an institution. So that's what brought me here.
So cool. So happy to have you join us.
Oh, I guess the personal things that might be interesting is I have a spouse who is in the other room and two toddlers who are both now asleep blissfully for me.
Nice. What time is it there?
It's 7:45.
Okay, I thought you were 2 hours behind. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you, Jason. Marcy?
He's 2 hours ahead of us, right?
I gotcha.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, hi, it's wonderful to see you again, Jason, and everybody. So Marcy Beck, background at another DOE national lab. Dan and I haven't really talked about it, but I worked at LBNL, worked at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab for most of my later last set of careers, and worked in energy and environment, supporting in program development for energy efficiency, climate change, and environmental programs. So I got to know the DOE and EPA sites quite well. And that's one of the things that drew me to EDGI, is being able to apply some of that knowledge to this very important effort. And besides that, I'm a working member of a board of an organization called Stewards of the Coast in Redwoods. And of late, I've been focused on eco-poetry. So everything's sort of coming together. I was really fortunate. I was away from the fires last weekend. I got to participate in an eco-poetry workshop that was at a restored boathouse in Point Reyes National Seashore. And it was pretty special. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcy. And Julia?
Of course, I minimized it as soon as it got to me. I'm Julia, and this is Walter Beyonce. And I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've been web monitoring with EDGI since last June. And I heard what they were doing. Actually, Justin Schell, who I don't know if he's here today, but he's also in Ann Arbor. And he was kind of promoting what EDGI was doing, and I wanted to contribute. So I heard about it through him, and I got on board.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, we have a little cohort in Ann Arbor. Jason, looking forward to a cohort in Oklahoma. You know, feel free to build. We're always looking for
lots of opportunity. I'll put it that way. We have a lot of room for growth for environment.
Yeah. That should be number one on your priority list as you get started. Awesome. Well, it's so fun to introduce. I feel like I want to bring somebody new in every week, because it's always great to go around and reconnect and hear what everyone's up to. So thank you for that. Moving into the agenda, just so you kind of know how this is structured, the analysts will post in the agenda important changes that they found on the week that they want to discuss. We've tried to streamline this as much as possible to be conscious of time and try to fit. We found we were pretty regularly running over an hour, that we try to keep it to an hour as best as possible. So this isn't necessarily every important change that was noticed on the week, but it's those that are significant enough to bring up and discuss as a team, or something that's odd that's happened, whether it's with Scanner, or just, again, something notable that each analyst thinks is worth talking about as a group. And then we go into, sure, Marcy.
Oh, I was just going to say, and partly I think because of the length of time, and also because of threaded efforts, we have sort of branched off and have separate meetings focused on reports and research. So people who are interested in those two arenas participate in those meetings as well.
Yep, absolutely. So those are kind of the two, or I should say, those are the three work streams really of the analyst team. First is to, first and foremost, monitor our domains, bubble up anything that's important into our important changes sheet, and then discuss and kind of triage as a group. It's kind of a decision as to what gets moved into a reporting pipeline by the whole group, but also the reporting team. And we've been thinking of ways in which we could incorporate EDGI into that process, actually, since we're on the topic, and rethinking as to how the report pipeline kind of gets managed. But historically, we've taken those important changes and moved them into a reporting pipeline. And as you know, we write our reports and we distribute those to our journalist pool. Cool. So after we go through changes, there are some discussion items that are pretty much regular weekly touch points, important initiatives that we have going as a team, as well as things that might have been communicated at the broader EDGI level, at for example, the All EDGI meeting last week, or any other important topics that anybody wants to bring forth. We usually have time for a dev update. We also try to incorporate any coverage that we have gained that week from reports or from outreach efforts. We have a couple members who are in DC, and they do a lot of networking. They do a lot of interacting with Capitol Hill, and so any kind of policy developments or any traction that EDGI has had, we'll try to bring that forward as well in the discussion. Okay, so with that, leading into our changes, I have the first one. It looks like a list of 3. I'll share my screen and walk you guys through it and see what you guys think. Give me a second. All right, so actually, Marcy, I think you posted something about the Endangered Species Act, or maybe we discussed it a little bit 2 weeks ago, that there are some new rules that have been proposed and are now open for public comment. Is that right?
That's correct. And one of the major threads is separating out the way that endangered and threatened species are treated, and basically minimizing the threatened species as far as the care and feeding of those in relation to,
Yeah, and I remember you brought that up, so I've been paying close attention. I hadn't seen a ton of changes because I covered the FWS under the Department of Interior, and now this week I'm finally seeing some stuff. So I wanted to bring this change up where there's some language that's been adjusted. The pages about listing of critical habitats. It's an overview. And it's kind of a couple of FAQs, right? So if a critical habitat is designated, does that mean no further land development can occur in that area? And they kind of flipped around some language to say, it's a reminder so previously it said, it is a reminder to federal agencies that they must make special efforts to protect the important characteristics of these areas. And so this part is actually a little bit more specific. A designation requires federal agencies to ensure that actions they plan to undertake, fund, or authorize do not destroy or adversely modify that habitat. That's all good. I don't think that that's hugely important. It's actually just this one word that kind of caught my attention. So thus, most federal projects are likely to go forward, but some will be modified to minimize harm of the critical habitat. And they changed the word will to could. So could be modified to minimize harm to critical habitat. So not major, but just sort of a downplaying, somewhat of a softer regulation that I'm picking up on here.
Yeah.
I also posted a link to the revised regulations.
One of the things I think that's important now, and it's sort of what we discovered when we were working on the Clean Power Plan repeal public comment, is just tracking those kinds of changes that are being made while the act is still in place as is, right? And that's a lot of what we were pointing to with the Clean Power Plan repeal proposal, that important resources were being removed while the act was still there, and also while, regardless of the act, it still is required under the Clean Air Act that the EPA monitor and deal with greenhouse gas emissions. So I think now in this time period when the public comment is open, it's going to be important to see what kinds of changes are being made in advance of any action.
Yeah. Interesting. So I did post the article, saying, seeking public comment in our public comment channel. I'm not sure that, do we have, maybe Gretchen, you might have a better idea. Do we have any DOI, any endangered species experts throughout EDGI that we might call on? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I don't know of any, but does anyone know who has access to or how to get access to the that expertise survey? Is that part of the intake now?
Yeah, it's part of that that survey that maybe Jason and Annie probably just filled out, the Google, whatever it's called.
Form.
Yeah, form. Thank you.
We'd find out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Do we go to Climate Central with these things from time to time? They might also have a network for that.
Yeah, or EDF, right? We partnered with EDF on a bunch of stuff recently, so maybe we could reach out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The other.
Well, Marcy, I think you just muted.
I'm working on a report related to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which obviously intersects with the Endangered Species Act. And it has to do with some removals of access to information about something called incidental take, which relates to inadvertent or unintended consequences of side effects of work that an organization might be doing on federal lands. And so there are definitely linkages to what's to the Endangered Species Act here, and I'm hoping that we can get the report out before too long while things are still in the public eye about this.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts on this? There's another page that just small changes to language. Where it kind of removed the word designated critical habitat. So I don't know, maybe there are some changes as to how these critical habitats are actually getting established. So something maybe to look into there as well for me. But what I thought is, I knew this was topical. I knew this hit the news. There's a lot going on with DOI. So I added it to important changes, but I'll keep an eye to see what else changes.
That's good. Also, designated critical habitat sounds like it might be a term, or a phrase that might be, they're starting to play with a little.
Yep. Okay. That is all I had. I'll pass it to, who was next on the list? Sorry. Marcy.
I think you're muted.
Okay. So this is one that shows up easier if you look at highlighted rendered versus side-by-side rendered, as we're looking at the different comparisons. This is the Office of Electricity, and what just happened?
Who wrote this app?
What happened?
Just switch to another diff type and switch.
Switch back. Okay.
Because if you're not changing it, it doesn't redraw anything.
I see. Okay. Thank you, Rob. So highlighted, rendered. This is the Office of Electricity. It's their top page, or the page about us. And there are multiple top page menus. And so they deleted the link to the 2009 Recovery Act. And if you go to outgoing links, you can see all the individual links that were removed related to that. The link is actually still live. I mean, you can go to the 2009 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. I mean, and it's interesting timing that they've decided now to remove reference to it. And I could come up with all sorts of theories that could be on the gold side or the black side of this in terms of motivation. But so 2009 was when the ARA, what we called ARA at the labs, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, was signed into law. And there was a huge amount, I think this is over $4 billion that was provided to DOE to do a lot of work on not only modernizing the electric power grid, but dealing with energy efficiency improvements. And so decision was made to eliminate this right now as people are thinking about the 2019 budget. So just thought I'd highlight that because it was a top page menu item as well. So it's there throughout. And I put in important changes. We'll just see what happens and as we sort of track what's going on with budget efforts. But you could make the case that somebody who has the best interests of DOE energy efficiency at heart sort of went in to delete this, so nobody can point to the huge amount of money that has already been invested in terms of making some of the huge cuts that we've seen the Trump administration throwing around for especially energy efficiency and renewable energy for 2019. But so that was it.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I didn't see it on the DOE's main page actually. So this is this is under that just one subdomain.
I'm pretty sure it was under EERE, but I'll check that as well.
Okay. I think actually Brian has been covering this week for the first time the DOE's EERE main page, so I'm sure he's
okay.
Seeing similar.
Great.
Cool. Thanks, Marcy. Annie.
I'm not very sure how to share the screen.
All good. It's if you're there's sort of a taskbar at the bottom of your Zoom window, and there should be an icon that has an arrow. It's green.
Green share. Okay.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
I think I got it. Do you guys see anything different?
We do. You're good.
Okay, cool. So I mentioned in the Slack that, wait, I don't know how do I do this? Okay, so the taskbar is over my tabs right now. Oh, okay, I got this. Okay, so I mentioned in the Slack that the stream protection rule, climate change priorities, was deleted. And then from there, I checked the climate change link, and it seems June 1st, sometime between June 1st and July 20th, the climate change page was deleted.
Right.
Are those the closest two snapshots we had together of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh wow,
I can
that's
yeah,
really terrible. Okay.
Rob, does that mean that Versionista wiped the rest of them out on filtering?
That should be what it means. If you click through to Versionista, we can find out.
I don't know if I have a version.
Ooh.
Oh, if you can't log in, then We'll post that in Slack, and we should dig in.
Okay. Yeah.
So can you articulate what the issue is there, Dan and Rob?
Oh,
didn't
just
understand.
that, because for everything that we're monitoring Versionista, I mean, we should, in theory, be getting it every day, except for when Versionista randomly decides that it doesn't want to capture it on the time frame it's guaranteed to capture it on.
See.
And so having a month and a half between two snapshots doesn't just seem strange. It seems really bad.
Well, wait, isn't this also the case that if it was the same on June 2nd and June 3rd, Versionista just drops those, but we can't tell the difference as the user between Versionista screwed up and Versionista correctly reported that it checked this on July 19th, but nothing changed.
That is correct. We actually can't tell that. And we used to assume that it just meant that this changed on July 20th until we found out that it was randomly dropping the ball.
Right.
And I was very interested in this and looked up myself on the Wayback Machine, and there is a June 20th extant page for it.
Oh, interesting.
But that seems to be the last one.
It must have been early in the day on June 20th because that's 3:18 a.m.
It looks like the archive.org version is 2054.
Huh. Could this be an intermittent drop? Are we sure it didn't come back?
Let me drop that in the chat.
I think it's been on the page for a while.
Yeah, I see. Because if it did come back, Versionista should have reported that were it working properly.
I think what they mainly did was just try to make the link inaccessible, and then they finally deleted the whole page sometime in June.
The last one in the Internet Archive is June 20th, and this is saying, and this.
Right, that's what I said.
July.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
I think I misheard that and confused.
Yeah, I said. Yeah, we
Sorry.
said. June. Thank you, Gretchen. That's what we said.
So now we know it's between June 20th and July 20th?
Looks on Internet Archive that. Oh wait, where did it go?
It's current as of today. There's an Internet Archive snapshot today. DOI.gov/climate.
With a 404?
No, that has content.
Although what's interesting is they have content, but all those snapshots are red.
Right.
Which should mean like a load balancer issue or something.
Yeah.
What does the red mean?
Usually that means internal server error. So, which is just like, so, and it could be actually, let me actually curl that and see what response.
Yeah, I think if you click on all the other ones, it just goes back to June 20th for the date.
But it is like, so just so we're clear, like this DOI.gov/climate, I'm getting content unavailable live. Right? So okay.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Okay. Weird.
So at best, it's ongoing flaky.
Best.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of issues with that. I mean, removing it from the priority list, taking the page down. What was on here? A bunch of links. I mean, not much was on this climate change page, but So I think when it's best to kind of give a bit of time to see if they're messing with this page and just want to, or just updating it. but if we can narrow down when it was actually taken down, that would be helpful. And then we can see over the next week or two, Annie, if there's any change, if they bring it back up with different content or what. But that seems important to me. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Yeah, so there's two things. One, that was removed from the footer, and then two, that the link is also dead. Right? So really two significant changes.
I think the removal from the footer was like kind of intermittent or something. Like some of the pages had it removed, but I guess the string protection rule didn't. It was like record. I think it was recorded in the important changes before, but some of the pages might have not had that removed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was discussed, unless I missed it. I mean, it might have been added to the important changes, but maybe we didn't bring it forward.
Oh, Annie, I checked on that. This is something for all of us to be aware of. I think you noted that it was shown as a change in April. That was April of 2017.
Yeah.
Not April 2018, right? So it was a lot,
Yeah, that was a while.
Yeah, but then it came back.
I'm confused by that.
Yeah, so it's
Good catch,
significant
Annie.
find, Annie. Yeah. Thank you. That's great to have that in the first week.
Yeah. Jason, what's the difference between a 403 and a 404?
So 404 is not found. 403 is access denied. I mean, we have it, and we're not going to let you see it.
That makes me that leads me to think they are just updating it. We might see it come back up, especially if it's the same thing that happened last year. So definitely good to keep an eye on that.
Was this a case where we called it out last year and they put it back, or was no action taken?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall us releasing a report on this. Gretchen, do you remember that? Okay.
I think I talked over Rob. Sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was staring at the curl output for the other previous thing, so I was only paying attention. It was the 403 from one of our Versionista snapshots?
No, that's from the live site right now.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Because I was just going to say the thing to remember about the Versionista snapshots is that also it occasionally overdoes it on the server, and some servers respond with a 403, like, stop hitting me so hard. And Versionista doesn't stop. So sometimes we get 403 snapshots that are intermittent because Versionista behaved badly.
Mm.
All right, cool. Good to see you join, Sarah. How are you?
Good. Hi, everybody. And welcome, Jason.
Thank you. I feel welcome.
Do we have anything else? Oh yeah, Gretchen, I see you added one to the list too.
Yeah, I added one. I basically showed a very similar thing a couple weeks ago, where it's just very strange to me that it's about the same rule, the pesticide applicator certification rule, where it was originally supposed to go into effect March 6th, 2017. And then because of Trump's executive order putting a stay on it, or blocking the implementation of any rule that was supposed to go into effect anytime in the first 60 days of his presidency, it got delayed, and then it got delayed a bunch of other times, and eventually was supposed to be implemented in May of 2018. And then in June of 2018, they changed a couple different pages, they changed this little notice of when this rule goes into effect. And they changed it to say it actually went into effect 14 months ago in the original March 6, 2017 date. when it did not go into effect. And there's like history in the Federal Register demonstrating that it did not go into effect then. So it's just like it's just very strange. And they've not remedied it. Like I've checked to see, because this happened in June. So I checked back for the July ones, and the July ones still say like this erroneous 14 months prior to actual implementation. Anyway, so I have started a note stock on pesticides because there are a couple other like weird changes. But has anyone ever heard of something like this before? Like it just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. Well, I see the line that says they expect to publish a notice of proposed rulemaking by the end of fiscal year 2018. So is that something that was, that's been added? Well, that's been added since June 2017, I see. But
that's been added, but that's just like one part that like wasn't part of the original proposed rule. They're now saying there's a minimum age so that like trying to address child labor.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
That's just like a kind of an add-on part. Anyway, so started a note stock.
Okay. Yeah.
Seems very strange.
It does.
That sounds good. I mean, this is I think you've raised this a couple times now, and it seems like it's a ongoing saga.
And the other part of it that I noticed as we stopped sharing screen was that the states have a responsibility to have these compliance plans in place by 2020, but yet it's not really clear what the heck's going on with the rule.
Yeah.
So that puts a lot of, it'd be interesting maybe to see if there's anybody out in the States somewhere who monitors this or is on the receiving end of this, who might be have some insights.
Are there any groups that work on pesticides? Like I thought about, there are a couple of postdocs from the Silent Spring Institute in EDGI that I thought might have some knowledge of other organizations that work on things like pesticides. Any other ideas?
I think there are. Going back to your idea of getting that survey results, I when I was looking at that a few months ago, I seem to recall there being some expertise listed in that area. I'll dig that back up, Gretchen, and share it with you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Cool. Sarah.
Gretchen, I just saw something. I just looked up. There's something called the Pesticide Action Network that's based in Berkeley, of course. So I'll try to follow up and see what they are.
Marcy, bring them in. That's awesome. Good fun. Sarah, did you have anything to talk about this week?
I had a handful of changes that I noted, and due to my week, Gretchen, I apologize. I didn't participate in the process that you provided the documentation for. But what was a bit unusual was that I think 3 of the 4 involved an information access increase. So it was really refreshing to click on a page and there was actually more information. So yeah, I didn't have anything in particular to share, but that was my general experience from this past week.
What were the domains, Sarah?
The domains were mainly oddly enough, in compliance. The national enforcement initiative reducing risks of accidental releases at industrial and chemical facilities. It had previously been specified as for the fiscal year 2017 to 2019, but that bit was removed from the title of the page, and the problem section and the goal section were expanded. And they added a sidebar about ammonia with texts and links. Yeah, something like along those lines. And then it was sort of a mixed bag in the Spanish EPA page, but overall it was kind of nice to see.
It's always funny to think. I've come across those types of things too. It's like, is this important? Is it not? Kind of want it to be important. But always good to highlight where our federal agencies are actually doing a good job. Cool. I think that wraps up changes for this week. Moving into discussion items. So Gretchen, did you want to lead? I was looking at your sheet. I did a very quick trial with a set of changes. The set of changes this week from the NIEHS domain, and I think we might have to go over that a little bit because, literally I chunked it into 24 groups of 20, and I was able to just not monitor 20 of them because I knew, right off the bat that they're unimportant. So I saved a bunch of time. I love it. Did you want to maybe give a quick intro for the team?
Yeah. So something I've been thinking a lot about is how to really maximize our capacity, and knowing that we spend, we contribute a lot of time looking through every change that's like a date change, the menu changed and has affected 500 pages, and all those sorts of and like standard web maintenance things, and so I talked. Well, actually, just Kevin was there, but I went to the web dev meeting one time and talked to Kevin and kind of got updates from the DataKind meeting too, of like, is this kind of cataloging of these kind of web maintenance changes, would that eventually be getting us to a place where they could reliably be filtered out of our, of what we're monitoring? And it seems like the basic question is no, that would take the basic answer is no, and that it would take millions of data points to get to the point of separating out kind of the signal to the noise of those kinds of changes, because sometimes it's a menu change and a date change, but still unimportant. Basically that was what it seemed like. And so it made me wonder, is it worthwhile to catalog all of these changes when we know that they're not, that they're not ones of consequence? And so would that free up more time for us to be able to follow up on reports, to do investigations based on, some qualitative, something that we've identified just looking in our domains as something that we've got a hunch about, and we could then follow up and see how these changes add up. Just releasing a lot of time so that we could do some of the more really substantive work. And so I wanted to do a quick experiment to see how much time could be saved if we, as opposed to cataloging each of these changes to say yes, this is the date change, this is the menu change, this is a sidebar change. If we just saw that the change was not important, kind of copy and paste it over to say yeah, I looked at that, but not actually go through and categorize it. And so then only to spend time categorizing what we deem at least somewhat important. and to then kind of time ourselves, like chunk it up into the same number of changes, time ourselves for like, a set of 50 or a set of 20, and at least estimate out, how much of this was looking at important changes, how much of it was spent looking at unimportant changes, and like, and how many important changes do you have and how many unimportant changes do you have, and just see, like, does it actually save us time? And I don't know who else done it. I'm the only one that filled out the little table in the doc. I was actually blown away at how much time it saved. I'll share the doc in the chat.
I can just share my screen too.
Yeah, go for that. Either way.
I added my funky data points, but they are data points.
I think so. I'm like not a particularly fast monitor. I've come to the conclusion based on zero evidence, aside from the fact that Justin Schell completes this domain every week, and it's taken me like 3 weeks to complete one of the weeks. I've come to the conclusion that he is a much faster monitor than I am. But beyond that, just looking at, so group 1 or 3 is where I was doing the normal cataloging everything, and groups 2 or 4 are where only cataloging important changes, and kind of just looking at the unimportant ones, saying like yes I checked them, but not categorizing them, and it saved just so much. Like I literally spent like less than half as much time when I could just say like, nope, that's not important, nope, that's not important. So it's something that I'd like everyone to try out to see, so we can have a discussion of like, is it worth it? Like, I know people have concerns about, losing this kind of comprehensive record of all the website changes across these domains. And so just kind of having a priority, a prioritization conversation about, if we didn't spend time here, would it be worth it to spend, so we could spend time elsewhere?
Mm-hmm. I also want to apologize because my schedule wouldn't let me do this, but I will commit to doing it next week. But I wanted to know something I mentioned last week as well, and maybe Jake is a good person to ask this of. Was it clear? Was it sort of binary for you? I mean, was it easily to just sort of say that things were either important or unimportant?
For me, with this exercise, yes. And the reason is I have monitored the NIEHS, and like I know basically what pages, like, so I took 163 page changes this week and divided them into four groups of 20. And if you look at this second group, I know from just looking at the diff and text hashes that it's the same unimportant change. This was just an addition to a side menu. Mm-hmm. And so literally I didn't have to do anything for this group of 20 here, right? So like that's wonderful. Then the third group was, maybe 3/4 of that same change. And then, a handful of other changes that I know, like this contact us page, for example, they just update like a spam filter kind of thing, like a robot checker. I don't know what the technical term for that is, but it updates every day. So that's why it populates at least 7 times each week in my changes. So yeah, there's things like that where I can totally use this, and it saves me a bunch.
Can I interrupt with a super quick question?
Yeah, and Dan, I know you had a thought too. So Rob, Dan, go ahead.
Of this set of things that we thought about that are really dumb, obvious things that we have to filter out, I don't think the CAPTCHA, which is the name of the thing you're talking about, is one that had crossed my radar, although it seems obvious in retrospect. Has that ever been logged and stated in the like dictionary that like the CAPTCHA spam filter thing is the thing that's doing it on that page? Just so we have somewhere that's like this class of thing is the problem.
Yes. I believe this is a long time ago, so I'll double check, but I believe I put it in the dictionary.
Awesome.
So
guess I'll jump in. Yeah, so this is great, and I feel like it's embarrassing that we didn't think to do this a year ago. It's very smart to get some evidence on the actual timing. It reminds me of, let me paste this link. Has everyone seen this XKCD comic? Where it's like how much time you spend automating something versus how much time it actually saves you. And I think a lot of people who can program are guilty of net losing time over too much automation. I think Kevin was probably reciting the party line on a lot of dev calls is, the party line on a lot of dev calls is like, it's too early to do this, because we do get a lot of interest from the very beginning of people who like want to use machine learning to magically identify a significant change. And once you spend some time on these analyst calls, you recognize how subtle the difference between an important change and an unimportant change is, and how difficult that problem is to solve. So generally we keep telling people, not yet. We have to do boring plumbing work before we can do this work. However, I would not say that it's hopeless, and I would not say that this dictionary work couldn't be potentially useful. I think there is some hope for automated filtering, but I don't think we have any evidence that the questions that we're asking now and that the analysts are investing their time in this dictionary are actually the right and useful ones to ask, because we haven't done real experiments on it. And it's also true that at any point we can go back through all these old unimportant changes and go back and recategorize them. So I don't know that you lose very much at all by saying, stop doing the dictionary. We have a large data set that we can play with, and let's pick this back up once we have time and capacity to actually know what are the right questions to ask. Mm-hmm. That's at least an interesting thought. Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to say I totally agree. And the addendum I want to add on to there is we've known for a long time, and the thing we keep saying to people who are interested in machine learning is this, that like we think the machine learning problem is really hard and it's too subtle, but we know there are a whole bunch of really obvious things that we could filter on. But understanding those things are more like, I understand the weirdnesses of HTML and other stuff that a lot of you as analysts don't, that I can take a page that you said not significant, and I can look at it and say like, oh yeah, that's because of like these stupid invisible things that we should actually not be caring about, and filter those out. But none of the things you're going to annotate are going to tell us that. So it's still super useful to have the dictionary, but it's maybe not useful to have the dictionary with all the like boxes checked about all the things that you saw. Because what we can draw out that's super useful right now, if only we put in the time to do it, is stuff that you won't be able to see and annotate anyway. But it's super useful to have those there so that we can dig through them and go, oh, here's a thing like that CAPTCHA where we should be able to recognize that code pattern and just like rip it out of the page before we ever do a comparison.
So what's the action item on that? Is it to sort of prioritize now coming up with a coarser dictionary that is finer than significant, not significant, but not parameterized the way it's parameterized now? I
think for my part, that action item is for us being you, Dan, me, and Jason, and Kevin, and Ray. And for the analysts, this is great, and I agree that basically the conclusion is you need to stop worrying about this.
Yeah.
And just hand us a giant pile of stuff. And actually, the pile of stuff may be perfectly big enough right now, so you can just ignore it and be done. Also, and we can also create that pile for ourselves by going through all your sheets and saying, what are the ones that you just left blank because they weren't important? That's our pile. So yes, I just wanted to point out, like, there is useful stuff we can dig out of there, but not with the annotations you're making. So it's like a good realization that you should stop worrying about it, and it should become our developer side problems.
Yeah, thank you for taking this initiative, Gretchen. I think you just saw the forest through the trees. That's good.
Well, that's that's great. The other thing that I want to note with that is that, like, you know, we started those categorizations when we were very first, like, oh God, we're going to look at websites. What are some things that websites do? Like, you know, and so they weren't like super thought out. I think that now, if we were to make new categorizations, maybe we could have another meeting where it's like, after looking at things for the last year and a half, like, this is what stands out to me as things that are important, things that are like unimportant web maintenance that are important to be able to filter out. In the Maya days, yes.
Any other thoughts on that topic? Other than it'd be great to have, yeah, Marcy, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, finish your thought.
Just gonna basically try to prompt everyone to give it a shot again this week for a set of changes, and just see how much unimportant changes is wasting time.
And so speaking of wasting time, I just want to say how grateful I am that the dev people are here.
Yeah.
In these meetings, there's so many times when we say we wish you could have been here to help, because, you know, the way you just grabbed onto this right now, that was something that we've been angsting over for, you know, a while, and you know, it's just inspiring and so helpful. So I just hope that we see your faces regularly at these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. +1. Great. Well, we're running right up on an hour, guys, so I don't want to go too far over. We'll table the team updates for this week. We typically do, but you know, anyone who's interested in report writing, we're gonna there'll be a meeting hosted on Friday at noon. And if there's anything big on the research front, maybe Gretchen or Marcy, you could post it. But I don't believe did you guys meet on Friday? This past Friday? Okay.
No, we're going to try to meet sometime in the middle of the week, right, Gretchen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Hiring updates, you heard them at the beginning. Awesome stuff. Really exciting. I left recruiting as an agenda item here, as so happy to have Annie on board, and also happy to have Brian out on the West Coast join as well. This is a tricky time for him, but he is getting up and running, monitoring a couple of domains, and we'll be staying in touch. So I do think we could always use additional hands. So if anybody has network or interested parties, socialize our project and see if you can pick up any interest for volunteering for this team. It's a great initiative, and you know, we've got a lot of people who been working on it for a long time and are interested in doing different things. So it's always good to kind of cycle out the domains that we're monitoring. Okay, with that's everything I have. I definitely, you know, if there's anything from your side on the dev side, yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I don't necessarily want to hold up the meeting with it, but I just wanted to take some synchronous time while we're on a call and understand from that chat about the cross-domain issue. I'm not sure I understand what that issue is.
I'll show you in like 20 seconds. Okay. Let me share my screen. So this was reported a little while ago, and it turned out, now my taskbar is covering important stuff. Okay, so I'm going to look at the EPA's hydraulic fracturing domain that I cover, right? If you look at column E, Rob, which is basically the URL, you'll see that through all of last year and into this year, as we come into Feb, as we come into March, right in March, you start to see that this page started to get listed under multiple subdomains. And then that started to happen more and more often. And you'll see, so now you'll start to see in column E here that this is actually pretty regular, where these changes pop up under multiple subdomains. This was really dramatic under DOE. So Justin D saw that his changes sort of blossom after March. So, we reported it. I know Ray was aware of it. I don't know that it was ever concluded as to why this started happening.
I can tell you exactly why that started happening.
I'm all ears.
I feel like there's been some massive miscommunication because I thought this was super clear. So this, the reason this is happening is because whoever's managing Versionista has wound up setting Versionista to monitor that page twice. Because when that page is listed under two domain sets in Versionista, it actually looks at it 2 times, which is really dumb. And then it sends it back. And we used to have all kinds of problems in the database because we would track those separately, even though they are the same page, and be all messy. So one of the changes we made a few months ago when you saw this start happening was to condense those and say we have 1 page record for it, and we're tracking it as part of 2 sites. And then the thing, I asked Toly how he wanted that handled in the spreadsheets, and he said just list it under both. So what you get at the end is in your sheet, that site column, which used to only have the 1 site name, now has the name of all the sites that URL is under. And that same line will appear once in each of the domain-specific spreadsheets. We can cut that up and trim it down so it only appears in 1 or whatever, however you want. It's not hard, actually. I wish I had understood that this was a problem and a confusion, because we can totally fix it however you want to best fix it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I wasn't aware that it was. I definitely was confused about potentially solving. I didn't know if it was a quick fix. It seemed like it was just kind of the message that I think was delivered, and I don't know by whom, but it was sort of just like, this is just so that we're comprehensive. This is the way it has to be. So
do you dev people understand the implications for the analyst?
No.
Okay, so the implication for the analyst is if you, and in some cases, Justin, Jake, and I found 3 or 4, right, web places. So that means Justin's looking at his domains, Marcy's looking at her domains, Jake's looking at his domains, and so 3 of us are looking at the same domain, the same site, when it would be much more efficient to get back to just 1 person looking at the site. Right? So when we have these massive numbers, so we were, at one point, we were just looking at all the overlap and saying, well, that's not efficient for our work.
So I just want to make clear that you are not looking at any more pages or doing any more work than you used to before you saw these listings.
So it's just exposed the problem, right?
Yeah, the difference is now you can see that you're each doing the same work. And one of the goals we had when doing it was to make that visible so that we could do better workflow stuff. And the response at the time was, don't worry about doing better workflow stuff with it. So that's why we didn't do anything.
I love this. I love this.
So if what we want to do, the dumb solution that I would take if you want to make sure you're not redundantly looking at the same page, is I would just say whichever site name is alphabetically first, that's the one that's the spreadsheet it's going to be on.
That's fine.
And that'll be the only spreadsheet it's on. That's not hard. I can do that. I don't know if I can do that tonight, but I can do that.
We can do it. Let's do it over dinner on Wednesday. No, that's a joke. Anyway,
that's a bad idea.
I know it's a bad idea.
It'll be an entertaining dinner if we do.
I'll take responsibility for the that happening. When we started Versionista, we started seeds at different levels. We started a seed like at EPA.gov, and then we're like, crawl from here, and then we started seeds at like EPA.gov/mercury clean air rule / like really deep seeds. And so that's how we got all that duplication. And then those of us that are lay folks were like, oh crap, what have we done? And then at that point, I don't know what we've done, but we've done it, so we're just going with it.
Well, for what it's worth, it's totally a problem that Versionista should easily be able to solve and should not have been a problem in the first place.
I love it. I'm so glad we've convened today about this.
But now we're doing what we've been doing all along, which is like reverse solving Virginia's problems at the other end.
Oh, I don't, like, every few weeks I surface this as just like, and I am happy that we've gotten to this point.
I'm so sorry. There was
That's okay.
No apologies.
No, yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, let us know when that gets fixed.
I'll make an issue to track it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. All right. Anything else? Thank you for staying late, guys.
Thank you. Welcome, Jason. And this has been a really fun, great meeting from this analyst viewpoint. So thank you.
All right. Hope to see everybody again next week. See you in Slack.
Yeah.
I missed this crowd.
Okay.
Good to see you guys again.
Good to see you, Dan.
Yeah, great.
Good night,
Take care,
everybody.
all. Bye.
Bye.